All right, Title II, Hazardous Substance Response Revenue Act 1980, Subpart, Section 201, Short Title Amendment 1954, Short Title of the Title may be titled the Hazardous Substance Response Recovery Act 1980, Amendment 1954, Code, except for the otherwise expressly provided whenever the title amendment the repeal exceed the express the term of the amendment to repeal the section of the provision reference shall be considered the made section of the provision Internal Revenue Code of 1954, Subtitle A, Imposition Tax of Petroleum certain chemical subtitle B and subtitle B, the Establishment Hazardous Response Trust Fund. Subtitle C, Post-Closure Tax Trust Fund. All right, Section 231 provided the new chapter of Chapter C with Chapter 38 with the Internal Revenue Code of 1954. Section Title 3 of the Miscellaneous Provision. Section 301 of the President shall submit the Congress the 4 year of the enactment, comprehensive report with the experience with the implementation act, including but not limited extent of the which the act and fund with the effect of the EFM extent enabling the government to respond to mitigate the effect of the relief that has jumped some of the path of the receipt of the disbursement of the fund, the projection of the future funding of the need of the remaining expiration authority collecting taxes, end of the public health and welfare, environmental pole of the projection, belief then created in such need of the record of experience of the fund, the recovery and disbursement liability part of the record of the state participation system of the response liability compensation established act, impact of the taxes imposed with the Title II of the act with notations by illustrated with the other country with the assessment of the feasibility desirable of the scheduled taxes with which would take into account the one or more of the following likelihood of relief that has some of the degree of the have of the risk of the harm of the public health, the welfare of the environmental resulting in such relief that some of the proper handling, release, incineration, neutralization, hazard waive the disincentive of the property of the illegal handling, disposed hazard material, administration, reporting burdens, government industry, the extent of the taxable burden involved the substance of the particular part of the create the problems associated with the act improperly in preparing a report of the presidents for the result and consult with the appropriate federal, state, and local agencies affected with the industry, claimant, and stuff for the other interested parties. He may find usable based upon the analysis of the consolation requirement required with the subsection version shall include the requirement report or recommendation of legislative change for the deem of the necessary for the better effectuation purpose of the act, include but not limited recommendation concerning authorization levels of the act, tax and state participation liability limits of financial responsibility provision, response trust fund to the post-closure liability trust fund, consumption of these increase of the substance of the amount of the taxes imposed within 4661 Internal Revenue Code 1954, copper, lead, zinc oxide for the pipe feedstocks with the manufacture of the production of feed failure to life of the beside the use of the expenditure of the extra of the response trust fund, the economic impact of the taxing coal delivery substance of the recycled material, metal, the Administrative Environmental Protection Agency for the Consolation Secretary of the Treasury shall submit to the Congress the 4 year of the after the enactment of the report and identify the additional waiver of the designated of the rule of the hazard effect the effect of the day of the act for the pursuant of subsection 3001 the solid waste disposal act recommendation and approve the tax rate for the such waste to the post close. Liability trust fund the report shall be in addition with the recommendation tax rate with consider the quantity of the potential damage for the human health, the environmental of the disposal language the administrator pursuant to subsection 3001 B2 3 subsection 3001B3A with the Solid Waste Disposal Act 1980 determined should be subject to the regulation under subtitle C with the Solid Act within 3 years of enactment of the report of the necessity and adequacy of the revenue rate of the relation to the estimated future requirement of the post-closure liability trust fund. The President shall conduct the study of the determine whether the adequate private in terms of the protection is able to reasonable over the term of the act different the owners of the operative vessels and facilities subject to the liability under section 107 of this act, and two, whether the market for the stuff insurance is sufficient competitive to ensure the purchase of the feature of the reasonable range of the deductibles consistent insurance provision exclusion of the President shall submit the result of the study together with his recommendations for the 2 year of the day of the enactment of the act shall submit the interim report with the study with one of the year of the day of the enactment of this act. The President now acting within the federal official for the designated of the National Contingency Plan published with the section 1005 of the Constitution shall study with no later than 2 years after the enactment of the actual promulgation of the regulation assessment of the damage of the injury, the destruction of the loss of nature resources resulting from the release of the oil hazard substance for the purpose of the action of the 311 F4 and 5 of the Federal Waste Control Pollution Control Act with not assume the failure of presidential promulgate of the regulation required for the subjection of the required date with the president shall promulgate regulation of the late no later than 6 months after the enactment Superfund Amendment the reauthorization Act 1986. Such regulation shall specify the aid standard procedure for the simplified assessment of the required minimal field observation including establishing and measuring the damage based on the unit discharge relief the unit for the fact that there would be the alternative protocol of conducting assessment of individual cases determining the type of extent short-term, long-term injury, destruction, loss, and so the regulation shall identify the best available to proceed with the determined source of the damage, both indirect and indirect injury due to destruction, loss, and shall take into consideration factors included but unlimited replacement value, using valuability of the ecosystem resource of the coverage such regulation of the receive the provides and appropriate every 2 years. The Administrative Environmental Protection Agency, Consolation Federal Agency, appropriate the representative state, local governments, and non-government agencies to conduct the the report of the Congress within 2 years of the day of the enactment issues alternatives policy conservation involving the selection of a location have waste and treatment standards and for the disposal facility shall include an assessment of the current projected treatment so storage of the disposal capacity shortfall of the head of the waste of the management category state by state analysis or basis evaluation with regional appropriate siting designing federal waste management facilities and implication hazard waste management regions within intrastate, both and similar with the hazard waste management needs and installation analysis proposal construction operation have the waste management facilities non-governmental except the non-proposed solicited under terms of the subsection shall be analyzed involving the United States government fails to comply with the requirements of subpart C with the solid waste disposal act other applicable provisions. The recommendation of the appropriate balance between the public and private sector involved in sitting down inside and design operation of the new hazard waste management facilities documentation. Major reason of the public opposition, new hazard waste management facilities, evaluation of various operations, objection, obstacle to citing new facilities, including new legislation implementation, most suitable option or options in order to determine the relief adequate existing common law with the statutory remedy for providing legal redress harm to the environmental cover. The relief that has no substance of the environment shall there may be submitted to the Congress this study within 12 months of the enactment of this title. All right, the study shall be conducted in the system of the American Bar Association, American Law Institute, the Association of American Literary Lawyers, National Association of State Attorney General, the President of the Indian selecting the third members of each of the organization conduct with the study with the chairman. One report shall be collected among 12 members of the study group with the review of the adequacy existing common statutory remedies study of the group evaluating the following. Nature adequacy availability existing remedy for the present level of the compensation of the harm to the man with the relief that has some of the nature of the barrier for the cover of the particular with the representative of the barrier with the burdens given forward and improve the relevancy of the role of such barrier to play with the legal system. Scope of the evidentiary burdens placed on the plaintiff of providing harm to the police that has something in particular light with the scientific uncertainty over the uncausation, respect to the carcinogen, mutagens, teratogen, human effect of exposure to overdose to the hazardous substances over a long period of time. The nature adequacy existing remedies under the present law providing the compensation for the damage of the natural profit of the relief of the hazardous substance, the scope of the liability under existing law with the concern consequences, particularly with respect to the obtaining insurance of any of the liability of the barriers recover the proposed existing statutes, the limitation reports submitted to the Congress and shall appropriate the recommendations. Such recommendations shall so they address the need of the revision of each of the statutory common law, with such revisions that take the form of the federal state development and the model code of the recommended for the adoption of the state. The federal shall pay the administrative expense incurred by the study. No expenses shall be available to pay compensation except for the exemplable here during base of the one report of no case shall be the total expense exceeding $30,000. Your president is acting the Ministry of the Environmental Protection Agency, Secretary of Transportation Administration, Occupational Self-Health Administration, Director of the National Institution of Occupational Health, the shall study no later than 22 years after the enactment of the act shall modify the national contingency plan to provide the protection of the health, safety, and employee involved in some response actions. Insurability study with the incurred control of the comptroller general in consultation with the person with the described paragraph 2 shall undertake the determination, insurability, effect with the standard of care, liability, each of the following person generated with the hazardous substance liability, cause the damage of the owner act, the person who owns the operating facility, liability, cause damage of the act, the person who's liable injury to personnel with the property, increase the relief of the hazardous substance of the environment. And also the consultation conducted in the survey under the subsection of the comptroller consult with the following representative of the administrator, representative of the person described in the subparagraph of the ANC with the preceding paragraph C, the representative of the group of the organization generally with the person affected with the relief of the right and relief of the hubs and substance to the groups of the organized protecting insurance consumer to D with the representative of the property casualty insurer, the representative of the reinsurers, F the person responsible for regulation insurance at the state level. The 3 item evaluated step of the owner of the action section include the only among the other matters in evaluation of the following current economic condition in the future for the outlook for the commercial market of the insurance of the reinsurer of the current trend for the statutory common law and remedy of the impact of the possible change with the additional standard for the liability proof of the evidence damage of the existing statutory common law project and procedure remedies effect with the standard liability extent of the person who is both the and the act for the protection of human health, environmental, and the ability underwriting the price of insurance of the current trend of the and air of the judicial interpretation construction applicable insurance contract together with the degree of the implement of the language such contract description or assessment could affect the trends frequencies variety with the representative of the sample claim for the close during the calendar year to immediately receive the enactment of subsection amendments of the acquisition or assurance of the means of the obligation liability coverage other than the referred preceding subparagraph affects the standard liability financial responsibility requirements and proposed for the pursuit of the act on the office of the incentive developing demonstrating the alternative elimination of the technologies as well as the wish generation minimization. For submission, the Comptroller General shall report the result of the study of the Congress of immediate recommendation 12 months after the enactment. Subsection report and oversight recommendation annual report by the EPA on January 1st each of the year. The Ministry of the Environmental Protection Agency shall submit the annual report to the University Agency the progress achieved by implementing act during the preceding visual of the addition of the report shall specifically include each of the following detailed description of feasible study that carried out with the facility under Title 1 of the Act status for the estimated date of the completion, each of the date of the need of the and notice that each of the study will not meet with the previously published scheduled completion, new the estimated date of completion, evaluation of the newly developed feasible the permanent treatment technology progress made in reducing the number of facilities subject to the review of the section 121. Report of status, all remedy and enforcement action undertaken during the prior fiscal year, with including comparison remedial enforcement action undertaken the prior fiscal year, and estimate amount of the resource, including number of the work years and personnel that would be necessary each for the department agency instrumentally with carrying out the activities complete with the implementation of all the duties vested in the department agency instrumentally under the Act. Review the Inspector General, the considerably authorities Inspector General in 1978, Inspector General Environmental Protection Agency shall review the report support of the paragraph 1 and related to EPA activity responsible accuracy submitted to the Congress as part of the substance of the report with the result of the substance of the review and congressional oversight of the reaching of the reports of paragraph 1 and 2 with the subsection calendar year with the appropriate authorization committee with the Congress shall be conduct the oversight of the hearings to ensure the act being implemented being according to the purpose of the act congressional intention of the act and acting with the act. Effective dates and saving provisions. 302. The unless otherwise provided all provisions of effective of the day of the enactment of the provision of regulation pursuant to the provision section of 311 of the Clean Water Act repealed and superseded with the act effective the day of the immediately preceding effective day of the issue of the deeming the regulation is issued pursuant to the authority of the act shall remain in full force when effective unless the supersede with the new regulation issued there any regulation inspection respecting financial responsibility issued pursuant to the provision law of the repealed and superseded the act effective the day of the immediately preceding effective the day of the act of the deeming the regulation issued pursuant to the authority of the act shall remain in the full force effective unless until superseded the new regulation issued thereunder. Nothing in this act shall be modified in any way the obligation liability of any person, federal, state, or the law, including common law, with respect to the leaf of the hazardous substances or other pollutants. Contamination provision of this act should not be considered interpreted with construction in any of the way of reflecting, determining with any part with the whole policy regarding the impactability of the strict liability document activity relating to hazardous substances, pollutants, contamination, and other activities. Expiration sunset, section 303, conforming amendment, section 304. Alright, repealed subsection B with its 504 of the Federal Water Pollutant Control Act. One half of the unobligated balance remain before the day of the enactment of the Act or subsection K with the section 311 Federal Water Pollutant Control Act. Also, some appropriate under section 504B2 of the Federal Water Pollutant Control Act shall be transferred to the fund established in Title II of this Act. In any case of the water provision of 311 of the Federal Water Pollutant Control is determined in conflict with any of the Provision Act, with the Provision Act shall be applied. Alright, legislative veto. Section 305, notwithstanding with the provision of law 72 with the promulgation of the rule regulation authority of the Title 1 of the Act, they have the Department agency the instrumental publication of the rule regulation transmit the copy of the Secretary of the State, Senate of the Clerk of the House of the Representatives, have to provide with the section of the rule of the regulation shall not be effective with the 90-day calendar date as a continuous section. Congress, if the date promulgation of both houses of the Congress and the day of the adopt the concurrent resolution matter of the effect of the resolve and close of the following Congress disapprove of the rule of the regulation promulgated with dealing with the matter with the rule of the regulation transmitted to the Congress for the being inappropriately filled within 60-day calendar day of the continuous of the Congress after the day of the promulgation for the House of the Congress to adopt the concurrent resolution transmit the resolution of the other half of the resolution disapprove of the such of the other half of the 30 calendar day of the continuous section of the Congress or other after transmittal. Alright, and at the end of the 60 calendar days, continuous session of the Congress after the day of the promulgation rule of the regulation, the non-committee of the House of the Congress report the being discharged from the further consideration current resolution disapprove of the rule or regulation either how the opposite of the resolution rule regulation may go in the immediately evidence of the calendar day such of the committee that reported and being discharged further consideration of the resolution either the House has adopted the resolution the rule of the regulation may go in effect sooner than the 90 calendar day of the continuous session of the Congress after each of the rules prescribed unless it disapprove of the with the subsection A of the section. The purpose of the subsection A and B with the section continue the session of the broken only with the adjournment with the Congress signed D. The days whether either the House of the not in session with the call of the adjournment the more than 3 days of the days certainly exclude the competition 30, 60, and 90 calendar days continuous session of Congress. Congress shall enact an rejection result in disapproval shall not deem the expression of approval of such the rules and regulation. Or transportation. Section 306. Each of the transportation subject to the list of the designated the provisions of 10114 of the Act 30 after the enactment subject to the refinement of the Reauthorization Act 1986 at the time of the as listing of the designation whatever the later less. This should regulate the hazard material transportation act with the common contractor care of the liable under the law of lieu of the section 107 act of the damage of the remedial action result of the relief that has something during the course of the transportation commenced prior to the effect of the listing of the regulation of the transportation have the material that has material Transportation Act or substance listed within pursuant to the subsection A of the section prior to the effective date of the list and then provided however this is subsection shall not apply if the carrier can demonstrate they did not have the actual knowledge of the identity of the nature of the substance release. Assistant Administrator of the Solid Waste, Section 307 of the Amendment of the Section 2001 Solid Waste Disposal Act of the out the deputy with the assistant inserting lieu of the assistant administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. Appointment of the Office of Solid Waste should be addition of the 5 assistant administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency provided the Section 1D with the reorganization plan with the number 3 to 1970. The additional assistant administrator provided the tax and substance control action of the appointment of the President with the advice consistent with the statement and should compensate with the rate provided with the level of 4 with the execute schedule pay with the rates of the Section 5.3.15 of the Title 5 of the United States Code. The amendment may be subsection A of the be effective 90 days after the date of the enactment of this act. Severability. Section 305 of the provision of the application provision, any of the persons represented within the application shall prove the provision circumventing with the remainder of the act shall not be there by with the administrative supplement supplement of Section 122 with the ends and limitation of the person rather than obtaining contribution of the party settlement with effect of the limitation with the contents due with the taking of the justice of the compensation violation of the Constitution of the United States, or if the person shall not be entitled to the United States law for the recovery of the compensation of the United States law, such for the taking, but in this case, for the limitation right of obligation contribution shall be derivative having no force and effect. Alright, Section 309, actions under the state law for the damage or exposure of the hazardous substance. State for the hazardous limitation of the hazardous substance, exemption of the statute law for the case of the action of the state law of the personal injury, proper the damage without the contributed with the exposure of the hazardous of the pollutant and contamination relief of the environment from the facility applicable to the limitations of action specified by the state limitation under common law provides the commencement date of the earlier than federal required the commencement date of the period should commence of federal required commencement the date in lieu of the date of the specified in the state statute. State law generally applicable except for the providing paragraph 1 statute limitations set by the state law shall apply the action of the owner of the state law for the personal injury property damage with cover the contributed exposure for the hazardous substance pollutant contamination released in the environment from the facility. Actions under Section 107 of the noting anything in the section shall apply with respect to the action brought under 107 of the Act. Definitions used in this section. Title 1 determines the terms used within the section may have the same meaning that used with the Title 1 Act. The applicable limitation period determined applicable limitation means the period specified with the statute limitation during the civil action referred to as subsection A1 may be brought commencement date of the day of the commencement date means the date specified with the statute limitation being the applicable limitation but required commencement date in general except the provided in some paragraph of the federally required commencement date of the meaning of the day of the plan of the new then responsibly should have known personal injury property damage referred to the subsection A1 called the contributed to the hazardous substance pollutant contamination concerns special rules and keep of the minor and incompetent plan after the term of the federal required with the commencement of the day of the May is later of the day referred to as subchapter paragraph of the A of the in case of the minor and the day of the which the minor reaches the age of the minor majority determined by the state law of the legal representative appointed the of the incompetent individual date will start the individual becomes competent and has legal representative appointed. Alright, Section 310 citizens the authority of the bringing civil action except for the providing subsection D and E of this section then 113H of the relating to time judicial review any person for the civil action suit on his behalf against any of the individual including the United States or the other governmental instrument agency except the permitted the 11th Amendment of the Constitution if the violation standard regulation condition requirement order with the head become in effect pursuant to the act including the provision of the agreement in section 120 of the federal facility or against the president of the officer of the United States including the administrator of the environmental protection agency administrator of the ATSDR with the alleged failure of the president and of the other officer perform acts and of this under this acting act the action of section 120 relating to the federal facility with not discretionary over the president and such officer. Paragraph 2 shall not apply with the act for the duty under the provision section 311 relating to the development and demonstration of the action of the subsection A1 action of the subsection A1 shall be brought to the district court from the district alleged violation occurred. Actions on the subsection A2 of the action brought with the subsection A2 brought the district court of District Columbia. Relieve the district court have the jurisdiction action brought within subsection A1 then form the standard regulation and recurring additional requirements against other concern including in the provision agreement of section 120 other or such action the necessary the violation imposed with the level of the provided the violation district courts have the jurisdictional action brought with the subsection A2 of the order of the president of the officer to perform the action of the duty concern rules applicable subsection A1 notice of no action commenced after the subsection A section 68 after the plan given the notice of the violation of the following present state of which alleged violation occurs which violator standard regulation condition requirement order concern including in the provision agreement under section 120 no under the paragraph shall given in such a manner the president shall prescribe the regulation diligent prosecution no action commenced within paragraph 1 of the section A of the president have the commenced within diligent prosecuting action over the action under the solid waste disposal act require the compliance with the standard regulation condition requirement the order concerning including the provision agreement of the section 120. Alright, E. Reusal of the subsection A2 with no action. The no action may be commenced with the paragraph 2 subsection A with the 60th of the day following the day of the plan give the notice of the minister of the other department agency instrumentality plan after the commencement of such act. Notice of the subsection should be given in such manner president shall prescribe the regulation. Alright, after the cost of call of the court and the final order of the action presumed the pursuant in the section may be awarded with the cost of litigation including the responsible attorney and the witness to the prevailing and the substantial prevailing party whenever the court decision determine the site of the award as appropriate. The court may, with the temporary retraining of the preliminary injunction, solve the requiring filing, buying, or equivalent security in accordance with the federal rules and civil procedures. Intervention. Any action under section of the United States of both over the party with the interviewing the matter of the right with the other provision regarding the intervention, section 113, and then other rights acted does not affect others and may impair the rights of any other person, federal, state, of the common law, except with the respect of the financial timely review of the provider in section 113H, others provided in 309 relating to actions under state law. The definition in terms of the section have not the same things as even in Title 1. Alright, 311, the Research Development Administrator, have the something research with the training authority, Secretary of Health and Human Administration, here with the subsection referred to as the Secretary and Constellation Administrator of the Jail with the support of the basic research training program, the grants, cooperative program, with the contract of the consisting of following basic research that include the epidemiological, ecological, with the domain of each of the following advanced techniques, detecting, assessment, evaluation, effect of the human health of the hazards of the method, the the risk of the human health of the present, of the hazards substance method, technology, direct human hazards, substance, environmental, biological, chemical, physical methods to reduce the amount of the toxic hazards, substance training may include the following short course of the continuing education, state, local health environmental agency, other personnel engaged in the handling the hazards substance management with the facility will include which hazards substance located in the evaluation of the units for the representative and of the facility. Graduated advanced environmental occupational health and safety include the public health and engineering aspect of the hazard waste control. Graduating training geosciences include the hydrogeological, geological engineering, geophysical, geochemistry related to the field necessary to meet the professional and personal need, the public and private sector for the effectuate purpose of this act. Director of the NIES, the Director of the National Institute of Environmental Health Science for the shall have the cooperative of the relevant federal agency referred to in subparagraph H and paragraph 5 of the carrying out the purpose of this section. Recipient of the grant successor grants cooperative with the contract with the meet with the enter the paragraph 1 of the accredited institution higher education and institute may carry out the research training the grant cooperative agreement with the contract through the contract include the contract with any of the following generated that has with the person involved with the detection, assessment, evaluation, treatment of the hazardous substance, owners operative facility of the hazardous substance are located state and local government procedures, and making entering with the cooperative agreement with contract with the subsection secretary through the director of the National Institute of Environmental Health Center with the consideration allocation of the fund of the training purpose. The director shall ensure at least one grant cooperative agreement with the contract shall be awarded with the training described in the clause of 1 and the 2 and 3 with the paragraph 1 and B with the applicable director issued with the operator with the training act with the operation of the director of the National Institute Occupational Health Procedure applicable grants and contract with the Title 4 with the Public Health Service Act and the following under subsection advisory specifically implementation subsection and A with the coordination of the research of the demonstrator of the training activities from the fund of the under section secretary shall appoint the administrative council therein in the subsection there to the advisory council should consider the representative of the following the relevant federal agency, chemical industry, tax, waste and management industry, the institution of higher education, state, local, and health environmental agency, government, general public. Alright, planning. Within 9 months after the date of the enactment with the subsection of the Secretary through the Director of the National Institute of Environmental Health Science shall issue the plan with the implementation paragraph 1 of the plan shall include the under the paragraph 1 and include the research and training the relevant and specifically technological issue resulting in science-specific hazards something the response experience. Secretary shall maximum extent the practical to take the appropriate step to coordinate program activities under the plan of activities on a federal agency in order to avoid duplication of effort of the plan. And should be considered need the development of new technology meeting the goal of the responsibility according to the provisions of the Act. The advisory councils provide the opportunity to review the comment of the plan prior to the assessment of the property with the completion property with the coordination among the federal agencies referred to in subparagraph A and paragraph 5. Or your alternative or initiative for treatment of technology research demonstration program. Establishment. The administrator establishes, authorizes the director care of the program research evaluation testing demonstrator the alternative initiative for the treatment technologies here in subsection referred to as the program which may be utilized to response action to achieve the protection of the human health and the welfare and environment. The administrator of the program shall be the administrator action of the technology demonstrating shall consider the programs carried out by the Office of Solid Waste Emergency Response by the Office of Research Development Contract grants carrying out the program. The administrator that authorized entry in the contract the cooperative agreement to make with the grant of the person of the public entity, the non-private entity, the public, which will accept the tax under 501c3 internal web the queue of the administrator of maximum extent possible set the end enter the appropriate conflict sharing agreements under subsection U of the and carrying out the program administrator of the range for the use of the site of the response to the undertaken in section 104 for the purpose of the carrying out the research, testing, evaluation, developing, demonstrating, demonstration projects. Each such project should be carried out and such the term of the condition of the administrator will require the ensure the protection of human health environment of the ensure the adequate control of the administrator of the research, testing, evaluation, development, and demonstration activities for the site at the site. The demonstrating persistence of the program component of the demonstrated assistant program should include the publication, solicitation, evaluation, and application of the demonstration project utilizing the alternative initiative, the technologies, selection of the suitable for the testing evaluation initiative of the technology development, a detailed plan for the initiative of the technology demonstration project, supervision of the demonstration project, provided the quality and term of the evaluation result of the alternative initiative of the technology demonstration project, determining whether or not the new technology is effective and feasible, the solicitation within 90 days after the enactment of the section, no less than one at every of the 12 months after the administrator shall publish the solicitation initiative of the alternative technology stated development suitable to the full scope of demonstration side of the response action undertaken within section 104 of the purpose of this subsection of such of the project to demonstrate the use of alternative initiative of the technology respect with the head of the substance pollutants the contamination located with the site with the proof of the site with the solicitation prior and prescribed the information to include with the application, include with the technical economic data to review with the application owner research development efforts of the other information facility to permit the administrative access of the technology will potential of remedial action in which it may be applicable. Application any person, any public or private non-property, and either the new application for the administrator, the response to the solicitation application such contain the proposed demonstrated plan step forth and how the project will be carried out such for the other information administrator required. Project projection selection. In selection technology demonstrator administration fully review the administrator of applications to project consider the list of the criteria subjects in paragraph 7 of the administrator will review the selected project of the demonstrator on Section 90 days for the receiving and completing the application of the project. The case of the refusal, select project administrator shall notify the applicant 90 days period and release the refusal. Selection site selection. Administrator shall purpose of the 10th of the response the undertaken under Section 104 of the location of the demonstration project on Section 60 days after the close of the public comment period. The opportunity to notify the public comment the administrator selects the site of the project and selecting any such site the administrator shall take into account of the application of the technical data preference either on-site operation utilized site where the hazardous substance pollutants and contamination of the created off-site. The demonstrated plan with the 60 days after the selection of the site, under the paragraph the location of the demonstration project, the administrator shall establish the final demonstration plan with the project based upon the demonstration plan contained with the application for the project shall plan clearly set forth how and when the demonstration project will be carried out. Alright, G, the supervision and testing. Each demonstration project and subsection shall be performed with the application with a satisfactory applicant under the revision administrator. The administrator shall end the written agreement of each of the applicant granting the administrator responsibility for the testing procedure, the quality control, monitoring, and other measures necessary to determine though the result of the demonstration project administrator pay the cost of the testing, monitoring, quality control with the measurement required by the administrator to determine the value with the result of the demonstration project. The limitations established some paragraph J that shall not apply to the cost. The project completion each of the demonstration over the such completion completed within such a time the shall the demonstration plan. Extension of the administrator may extend the annual deadline established in the paragraph of the mutual agreement they apply during the term. J. Funding and restriction. The administration shall not provide with the federal assistance aim for the part of the full scale of the demonstration project on the subsection of the end of application such for the applicant can demonstrate that cannot obtain the appropriate private funding financing on the reasonable term of the consistent with the sufficient care of the demonstrated project without the federal assistance. The federal funds for any full scale field demonstration project and subject to not exceed 50% of the total cost of the project estimated at the time of the award. The system administrator shall not expend $10 million for the assistance of the program to review the not expend more than $3 million in a single project. Or field demonstration. The care of the program administrator shall initiate relief of the 10 field demonstration for the alternative initiative protected treatment technology the type of the response being undertaken within Section 104 of the official year of the 1987. Each of the succeeding 3 years of the official the administrator determined that for the 10-year demonstrating project field demonstration project for the subsection can be initiated consistent with the criteria set forth in paragraph 7 of the official year of the administrator shall translate the appropriate committee of the Congress the report explaining the reason and ability to conduct the demonstration project. 7. The criteria and selection technology demonstrated by the subsection administrator shall consider the protection of the human health and environmental. Consider that each of the following criteria: the potential contribution and solution of the waste problem of the greatest threat with the human health, which can adequately control the present technology, otherwise pose significant management difficulties. Available to the technology which has been sufficiently developed in the field demonstrated with which would likely be cost effective with reliability. Availability, suitability of the demonstrating such technology taking account of the physical, biological, chemical, geological characteristics, site, extent of the contamination found with the site of the capability of conducting demonstrate the project in such a manner ensure the protection of the human health and environment. The likelihood of the data generated from the demonstrated project will be applicable to the other side. The technical transfer. In carrying out the program, the administrator conduct the technology transfer of the included the development, collection, evaluation, coordination, dissemination, information relating to the utilization, alternative innovation of the treatment technology response action. Administrators establish and maintain a certain reference library such information maintained in administrator should be made available to the public sector provision section 552 Title 5 of the United States Code 1905 Title 18 of the United States Code and the other government agency and the mayor facility disseminating except upon the satisfactory administrated by any of the person any of the portion of the obtained under the subsection of the administrator directly and indirectly of the source person where the public devolves. Trade Cercla, the other priority information such a person administrator discover the information discovered there of the punishable under section 1905 of the Title 18 of the United States Code subsection new an authority withhold the information congress any committee the Congress required that the chairman and subcommittee. Training the administrator of the subcommittee with the carry out the office of technology, demonstrate the project, training the evaluation, training of each of the following, training of the procedure, handling of the removal of the head substance of the employee with the handling of the substances, training management facilities at which absence of the located evaluation have the human health of the president, such facilities, state, local, environmental agencies, personnel definition, purpose of the section of the alternative involved in the treatment of the technology and priority patented method permanently after the composition has waste through the chemicalogical, biological, physical means significantly reduce the toxicological mobile volume and combination thereof has waste can material being true determines include the technology characteristics as of the extent of the contamination, chemical physical character of the contamination, stress and flow of the contaminants of the complex ecosystem at sites. Or as the substance reach of the ministry of the may conduct with the support of the grants cooperative agreement the contract of reach of the respect of the detection, assessment, evaluation, effect of the risk of the human health, the hazard substance detection, have the substance of the environment, the administration, coordinating with the reach of the Secretary of Human Health and Avoid acting through the Advisory Council to settle the intersection to avoid the duplication of the effort. United States hazard substance research signed by the grant program. The administrators shall make with the grant influence the higher learning, establish the operator of the new food with the 5 hazard substance research signed by the United States carrying out the program and under the substance subsection of the 10 administrators shall have the reestablished for the operated 10 have the substance research into the United States. Responsibility of the hazards of the research center of the table of the section include but not limited to conduct the research training, the relating, the manufacture, even the transportation, disposal management, hazards something the republication dissemination result of such research. Application institution higher learning the interest they receive the grant under the subsection shall submit with the administrator the application in such a form that containing the such information the administrator may require the regulation selection criteria the administrator select will receive the grants under the subsection on the basis of the following criteria. The substance research control standard of locating the state representative of the need of the breach under the such of the state located and provided hazard waste management and the grant recipient shall located in an area that has experienced problems with the hazard substance management. They are available to the grant recipient of the carry out subsection demonstrate the research response capable of the grant recipient to provide the leadership to make a national regional contribution and selection of both long range and immediate hazard substance management problems. Grant recipient shall make with a comment to the supporting ongoing hazardous substance research programs budget with institutional funds at least $100,000 per year with grant recipient shall have an interdisciplinary with demonstrated expertise that has substance management research. The grant recipient shall have demonstrated the ability to disseminate the result that has the substance research for the educational program through interdisciplinary continuing education programs. 8. The project of the grant recipient's purpose of the under grant, the necessary for the appropriate the maintenance of the after the no grant may but the under the subsection fiscal year and left the recipient of the size of the grants and for the agreement with the administrator require to ensure the recipient is maintaining the aggregated expenditure for all the other sources establishing the operating will have the substance of the research time of the related research activities at or above the average level of such expenditure for the 2 fiscal year of the preceding day of the enactment of the subsection. Federal share of the grant under the subsection should not exceed 80% of the cost of the establishing operating regional have the substance of the research time of the related research activity carried out by the grant recipient. Limitation of the funds. No funds available to carry out the subsection. They should be used in acquisition of real property, including building construction of any of the buildings. Administration through the Office of the Administrative responsibility for the carrying out of the subsection of the Office of Administrator, equitable distribution of the funds. Administrator shall allocate the funds made available to carry out the subsection, equitable among the region of the United States. Technological transferring activity not less than 5% of the funds made available to carry out the subsection in the fiscal year should be available to carry out the technology transfer activities. Alright, E, report to Congress. At the time of the submission of the annual budget report for the Congress Administration shall submit the report to the committee with the House of the Representatives and some of the advisory council for the establishment of the subsection A of the report of the progress of the research, the development of the demonstration program, the office of the subsection B, including the evaluation E of the demonstration project, complete with the preceding official with the finding with respect to the efficiency acts of the demonstrated technology, achieving the permanent with the significant reduction of the risk of the hazard waste for the cost of the demonstration project, the potential applicability of the project cost of the technology, other hazard substance, saving precision, nothing in the site with whether constructed to affect the provision of solid Waste Disposal Act. Small business participation administrators shall ensure the maximum extent of the practically adequate opportunity for the small business participation in the program established. Alright, and then the Love Quinnell property acquisition. And we're going to cut the tape there.